Well, hello, welcome to Berkshire Guitar Amplifier Repairs. Stuart Smith with you as always, and I don't normally do pedals, but I thought you might like to see this. This is a Mesa. Yuck. Sorry, did I say that out loud? Sorry. This is the Mesa Pre V-Twin amp, it says. Really it means kind of preamp pedal. And the customer absolutely loves this. He says nothing else does what this one does. Got a couple of valves on it. I think it's basically, you know, distortion overdrive or something. And the problem with it is it cuts out after a while. Obviously that's quite a hard problem to solve because it's intermittent, but it's cutting out after about an hour's playing. Ugh, that's so hard to deal with. And just looking at this, it's really solid. But I'm not a Mesa fan, as you might have gathered from my videos. I don't mean anything about the sound or anything. I don't really know much about that, not being a guitarist. But just from an engineering point of view. So, first of all, I don't think this looks horrible. This looks quite interesting, very industrial and whatever. But then you've got this horrible valve cage over here. It just looks awful. Looks like it should be inside something. And then you can't get to these pots. They're down in a well here. And to turn them, you have to use your little tippy fingers to just about try to turn it. And how naff is that? You can't even put your fingers down the side of a pot to turn it. They absolutely designed it like that and said, yeah, no, we like that. Let's let that run. And no one said, oh, I tried to turn all these pots and you can't turn them. No, leave it. We love it. We love the fact that you can't actually turn the pots. Let's run out 10,000 of these. Mine absolutely boggles. I know I do go on a bit about things like that, but it does irritate me. Right, now, the problem is how do you get this thing apart? Because it's absolutely built like the proverbial you-know-what. And half the trouble with Mesa stuff in general, actually, is just being able to get to it so that you can make any changes to components and stuff. The average Mesa amplifier is very, very difficult to work on. Some almost impossible. I know a lot of engineers won't even take on Mesa, and I'm getting a little bit close to that myself, if I'm honest. So anyway, I'm going to take the knobs off, I'm going to take these off, and there's a couple of screws here. So let's see how we get on with the disassembly process. Right, we'll start with the easy bit, which is getting this off. God, really heavy this too. May as well take the valve out, I think. ECC 83s. These screws out. Alright, I can see that the knobs are held on with Allen keys, of course. Why? Why would you use a ordinary screw when you can use an Allen key? Right. Come on. Right, enough that. I think we may as well take these off. I'm sure these will have to come off. That. So there's a couple of screws here too. I'm sure we may as well take those out. I bet they're holding the top on. I told the customer no guarantee they'll fix this, of course. Ooh, that comes off. Okay. God, how thick that is. Absolutely real chunk of aluminium, that. Right, no, as expected, no hint of this moving. That would be too much to ask, so I suppose we've got to take these off. yes, I said to him, I'm not guaranteed to fix this because I don't have a schematic, and it's like any other Mesa stuff I've worked on, and it'll be a nightmare inside. Oh, it's got these little nylon spacers on the pots. Better try and find those, save them. Not strictly necessary. Expect they just space the pot up off to a certain level. Right, there's a little bit of movement there. Still. It doesn't want to come apart. Right, I had to go on the internet to find out how to take this apart, and other people have had the same problem. Basically under here you've got two other screws. I can't even see what they are. I think they might be Allen key as well, but a different size. Let's have a look. Right, there we go. That's that. Now, will it come apart? Be a little bit careful here. Okay, good. Right. Okay, let's start. We do actually have access, but of course we have a bit of a problem here in that this is not going to be particularly easy to fix. This PCB here, power it up really, and see if we can get a signal through it and see what it's doing. Not terribly hopeful about this. With no schematic and all these op amps and stuff, not going to be very easy to fix. But let's power it up and get a signal through it at least, and see if we can get a noise out of it and see what it's doing. It comes with its own power supply, which is this hefty, great big thing here. So let's get a signal through it and see what's what. Right, not totally sure what's going on with this. So this is the bypass foot switch, and this is the channel. You've got two sort of distortion channels on it. If I turn it to that channel, which is it's called solo channel, this red LED's come on, you can hear it's quite distorted, which is probably what it's supposed to be like. It's probably that's the sound they want. However, if I go to bypass, the signal has gone completely, so it's not bypassing. I didn't think he said that was the problem. Okay, it might be okay. I turn the output volume down a bit, and so we've got clean there, and then there's the distorted sound. That's probably a different level of distortion there. So yeah, I think basically it's working now. He says after a while the sound goes. So let's put the signal generator back in. After a while the distorted sound goes. I think he said the clean always works. The bypass always works. I'm just going to turn the frequency down a bit on that so that it's not so intrusive. So that's the distorted, and there's the clean. So it's working at the moment. Right, okay, so the first thing is have a little tap around. The reason I'm doing that is obviously to look for dry joints, but if something goes wrong after half an hour or something, it's usually heat related, and that could be something opening up, some joint opening up, and this might just find it. If we can't get an obvious fix on this, I think we're on a hiding to nothing really. Right, okay, that seems to be okay. Now, the other thing let me just turn that down a sec. So, the other possible candidate for this, just so that you're aware, is I notice it's got a headphone jack here. I can't remember which one it is. And of course, what the headphone jack will do is to jack out the output and send it off to headphones. Now, if he never uses the headphone jack and the contacts on it are dirty, then it could just be, the contacts could just be opening up with a bit of dirt inside them, and that would kill the signal. I've known that happen many times, and particularly with FX send and return jacks, that's a very, very common fault on amplifiers. The signal drops out after a while, and it's dirty FX send and return jacks because they're never used. Just a little question mark on that from my mind. Now, what I could do to test that would be to get the signal running through, very gently insert a jack into the headphone socket and see if it breaks this signal, and then when I take the jack out, see if the signal comes back. But I don't want to do that. I'd rather do that when this is in a fault condition, because if I do that, it'll wipe those contacts and it'll never go wrong again. But if I wait until this is in a fault condition, in other words, this nice distorted sound has just dropped out to nothing, and I go, aha, that's the fault that he was talking about. Then I put a jack socket in there, and it all comes back. Then we'll know that it's the jack socket. I'd say it's less than 10-20% likely to be that. Other than that, I'd say we're on a sort of ticket to nothing here, trying to fix this. It could be many hours trying to find out which of these op amps was faulty, or whether this power supply section was down or whatever. I probably won't get involved in doing that. It's a standard old thing. In order to, well, you need a schematic, which I don't have, but supposing I wanted to change, supposing I suspected, doesn't really matter, just randomly, supposing I suspected that capacitor or something, well, to change it I've got to completely dismantle this entire thing and take the whole board out, put a capacitor and put it all back and reassemble it, and it's quite a major job each time you want to do something. Anyway, let's turn this back up. That's still working nicely. So what I propose to do is leave that ticking away like that. And we could get, the other thing we could do is get the hairdryer out on that, which is always a good trick. But I think, like, I could start heating it up with the hairdryer, but I think I want to get it into a fault condition first, because if that goes, I'm taking a bit of time to explain this to you because this is what fault finding is all about. If that signal suddenly disappears, I'll just turn it down by the way. If that signal suddenly disappears and we get into the fault condition, and I go, and it goes, it comes back, well, that tells us a huge amount. It tells us it's a dry joint on the board somewhere. If we're in a fault condition and endless tapping, no matter what I do, nothing brings the signal back. It's probably not just a dry joint, and we can start to maybe investigate a little bit further. So let's get the thing to go wrong first of all, and he says it goes wrong after about an hour, which is just a nightmare from a fault finding point of view. So I'm going to leave that on, and I'm going to pop in. I'm going to turn off the recording now and pop into the office into the workshop from time to time and see if that is still working. Right, I'll just turn that signal down a bit so that you can hear me, and it's been on for 3 hours, completely solid, nothing wrong with it at all, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. I'm going to have to contact the customer and ask him if he's got any ideas. but at the moment it's completely solid, exactly as it was when I first started a few hours ago. That's the clean, that's the dirty, and there's the channel change. Right, well, a couple of days later and an update for you. It was sat on the bench for ages, completely steady, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. So I decided to get the old trusty heat gun on it. This chucks out a fair bit of heat, it's much hotter than the hairdryer. And I went all over the board for quite a long time and suddenly it cut out. So I thought, aha, okay, here we go, heat related. And I left it for about half an hour and it came back on again. So we have a heat related fault. Now they can be quite hard to find, and I didn't bore you with it, and I've tracked it down to this area of the board here, and so basically when I heated up this area here, the sound went. I might be able to demonstrate that for you, so you can probably hear that in the background there. That's how it should be, and I'll put the heat gun on this area here. See if it performs for us. It might not. Go. You can see how long that took. It took quite a long time for that to go. And now that sound is completely gone now. I haven't turned that down, that's just literally cut out. Now, in order to find a fault like this, it's quite difficult actually. I use freezer spray. And so having narrowed it down to an area, first of all you go over the whole board, and if it cuts out you think, okay, it's heat related. Then you do half the board, and let's say you do this half the board and it never cuts out. Then you do this half the board and it does cut out, and then you do this quarter of the board, that quarter of the board, so if you can narrow it down to an area. And when you think you've narrowed it down to an area, which I narrowed it down to this area here, I thought I had, then make yourself a thick piece of card or paper shield, which you put down around here like this. And now you can see I've kind of isolated this area of the board here from the heat gun. And now you can heat up that area there only to see if that goes, and if that does still perform you can start to narrow it down. You can say, well, I wonder if it's these capacitors here, so you can make, there you go, it's come back again. Do you hear that come back? That's because it's cooled down a bit. So you can make a little, I'll just turn that down. So you can now make yourself a little shield for here, look. Have a go at these capacitors. No, they seem to be fine. Make yourself a little shield for here. Try these two. They're probably regulators of some sort. So those two regulators, you probably can't see very well in there, but basically there are a couple of regulators and a couple of capacitors down there. Look, put the heat gun in there. No, they're okay. Try these and eventually narrow it down. Now I've narrowed it down to these two capacitors and those two, I think they're regulators, not totally sure there. Then I've thought, okay, well, is it the capacitors or the regulators? So I put this around the capacitors only. They were okay. Finally, I put it around these regulators only. And as far as I can tell, and you can only ever be 75% sure, like that, you see. Got a nice little thing there, and I can now put the heat gun down here to heat those up. Now the other thing you can do is put freezer spray down there. I'm going to freeze spray those two regulators. Now that freezer spray hasn't gone anywhere else, it's gone on just onto those regulators. So you can only ever, like, is the hot air leaking out somewhere and hitting another component? It's not so easy to really locate. Okay, so we've got to the point of this repair where you have to take a view on what you're going to do. I've done everything I can really to narrow it down to, I think, this area here. I think it's probably one of these two, probably they're regulators, and I would expect, I can't see them very well, I'd expect there to be a 7815 or 15 volt regulator or something. It could still be these capacitors. That type of heat fault where it just cuts out or cuts back in, unfortunately could be either that or that. I've known capacitors do that, and I've known regulators do that. And you get to a stage where now you've pretty much done all you can in terms of narrowing it down. Now you have to sort of think about taking the board out, and that's always a bit of a trial. It won't take us long to get out, we've got to take it out, but then you take the board out, and then you change the components, you put it all back together, and you find just it hasn't changed anything, the fault is still there. So a lot of hours can tick away finding a fault like this. Was it here, or was some hot air leaking out over here and it's here, or whatever. Now we also could get lucky that when we turn the board upside down there's a dry joint under one of these components, and the board expanding is just opening up that dry joint, so that would be a real bonus. But what I'm going to do now is take the board out and look for dry joints. Obviously if there are no dry joints I'm going to change those to whatever they are. I might even take a view on changing those to, I think it depends on how hard the board is to get out. It might not be too difficult. I've got to take all these nuts off here, undo a couple of screws, and it might just pop out. So if it's not a real mission taking the board out, I might just look for dry joints and change these two, put it all back together and see if that solves it. But you can spend a lot of time on an intermittent fault like this, which only goes wrong, well, it didn't go wrong for me at all until I got the hairdryer on it. It only goes wrong under extreme circumstances. It can be, I've been here 100 times before, and it can be very time consuming. Okay, let's pop the board out then and see what we can see underneath here. Well, the board came out without too much drama, and these are the two regulators or whatever they are here, and I've had a look with the eyeglass and I can't see any evidence of any dry joints around here. So the next thing to do, I think, is to change these two regulators. And the reason I can't see them is they've got a capacitor right in front of them. These capacitors here are right in front of the legend, so I can't really see what they are. So I might have to desolder them to actually get to see what they are. I hadn't noticed, but you can see now there's a legend on the board there. Look, 79-112, 78-112. So they are plus and minus 12 volt 1 amp regulators. The 78-112 is a positive regulator, 79-112 negative regulator, and they're producing the split rail voltages almost certainly for these op amps and stuff that are on the main board there. So if one of those went down, that would certainly cause our problems. It's slightly less likely to be one of these capacitors, because in order to cause that sudden sound dropout, it would have to be the capacitor going short circuit. Yes, I guess it could go short circuit, but if it just went open circuit, you just get a little bit of hum on the rail and it wouldn't really matter that much. You certainly wouldn't get that complete loss of sound there. Still could be these, but I've got a pair of regulators almost certainly, so I think I'll just change those on spec and see if we get a fix. It's been about a week since I last did a bit on this, and I thought I had some 12 volt regulators, but when I went through my box I was very surprised to find I didn't have a single 12 volt regulator, plus or minus. So I sent away for some, and the post has been a bit slow, so they've been about a week to get here. This will probably see me out actually. I don't suppose I'll ever use these in my lifetime. Bit of a sobering thought. So we have a 7812 and hopefully 7912s in here. There we go, plus and minus 12 volt regulators. This is the negative 12, that's the positive 12. So I'm just going to pop those in and see if we get lucky and one of those was the issue. It could still be one of these capacitors here, but I've narrowed it down as best I can to these regulators. There's a 7805 there as well, but if you remember we shielded that off when we heated those up, so I don't think it's 7805. Anyway, let's just take these out. So fast forward a couple of minutes if you don't want to see me take these out, but some people like to see the detailed work, so I'm going to do it real time. And what I use for that is a solder braid. I use Kenwick solder braid. It's got a kind of resin in it as well, and with a bit of luck these will come out relatively easily. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You can see the solder wicking along that braid there. So I'm not getting a good feeling about this coming out. What I sometimes do is use a heat gun, this heat gun here, and just warm up that general area. It just saves all the heat being wicked away, and usually makes this exercise a little bit easier. Let's see how we get on now. A little bit better. Proving slightly difficult. Sometimes it just works like a dream, and sometimes you can fight and fight and fight to get a component out. Yes, the trouble with this is it's got solder on the top side as well. I've got a desoldering tool. I don't particularly want to fire it up if I can avoid it. Now, sometimes the other way to do it is to so it's a question of luck, really. I've seen those just literally drop out the board with that kind of treatment. But the other thing you can do is to sort of re-soldering it in at the moment, and just use the soldering iron alternately between pins like this, waggling it backwards and forwards, and there you go. That's got it out. Ouch, hot. It's got it out like that. I don't prefer that way because it puts a bit of mechanical stress on the traces, but now we can use the desolder braid, hopefully, to clear those holes, but it's not really not playing ball with. I like to show this sort of thing in real time because it shows you it's sometimes not that easy. It's all very well showing a cut where you've put the component in and everything's tickety-boo, but these are the real struggles of repairs, as anyone watching this who does repairs will know. So what I normally do is just grab a component, doesn't really matter, I've just got an LED to hand here, and just make sure that the leg will go through there, which it does. So that's that one out. I think I'll take them both out. I've got them, they're labelled up on the board so we can't go too far wrong. Let's see if that other one comes out a little bit more easily. I could turn that heat gun up to a solder melting temperature actually, but again, I don't really like to do that if I can avoid it. See how we get on here. There's something about this solder and this board which is just not behaving like it would normally do. So it's just not wicking away like it normally does. So I'm going to use the same technique again as I did on the other one. Just literally, go waggling the waggling it backwards and forwards. There we go, that's 2 pins out. There's the other one. So that's that one out. Ouch, hot, hot, hot. And now hopefully we can again wick away the excess solder. Don't know what's wrong with this board. It's just not behaving like a like it normally would. See that they're all blocked up, you see. This technique would normally just suck up all that solder instantaneously. Not sure that that's clear. Let's have a little go. Yes, well, in theory they're clear. If we turn this the other way round. Okay. Alright, well, let's have a go at putting the new ones in, getting the right one. That's 79 112 and 79 112 is here. So that goes in like that. Again, what you can do is just sort of give the leg a little tiny bend, just enough to keep it in like that whilst you solder it. So now I can get in there and solder. That's that one, and then we'll put in the 7812, double checking, 7812, there it is there. Right, that's staying in without me needing to bend the leads. Solder that in. Okay, I'm now just going to use my eyeglass to get in there and have a close look at the joints. Yep, and they're all good. So we can now turn this back over. I'm just going to use this to isolate the board, and then I'm going to power it up again and see if it's working first of all, and then of course we can see if it fails again. So there we go, all ready to test. Okay, there we are, we're in and on. I've got all the LEDs disconnected at the moment, so I can't really tell what's going on. That's the bypass switch, I think. Oh yeah, that's got a bit of crunch to it. That's quite a nice sound actually. So that is now all working, and it's in the distortion mode. But of course we know it was working before, it's just a question of whether or not now it goes off after a little while. So I'm just going to leave that on for an hour, I think, and come back to it. If it's still working then we'll heat it up with a hairdryer around here like we did before, and see if it falls over. I'll catch you in about an hour's time. Right, so it's 2 or 3 hours later actually, and I just left it on and it's fine of course, but then if you remember, it was a bit like that before we changed these things. So the next thing to do, of course, is just to heat it up with the hairdryer. You can probably hear that low level tone in the background. I've got it turned down to low level, otherwise it's a little bit too, like that, but hopefully you can hear that. And we'll turn the hairdryer on, and obviously what we're looking for is that tone to disappear and it to fail again. It's fairly hot, this heat gun. Too hot to put my hand in front of, for example. Looking fairly promising so far. I mean, these are too hot to touch, these regulators now, because of the heat I've been putting into them. Even the capacitors are way too hot to touch. Wonder if we might have got a fix on that. Let's give it a little bit more. Well, I think we might be in business there, which is good. So it was one of those voltage regulators that was faulty. It's just possible that it has still got that intermittent fault, but it was all very hot now, so I would have thought that would have kicked it off if there was going to be an issue. I think I'll leave it on just for another 5-10 minutes, all hot, in case it falls over. And then I think we can put it back together and he can have another go. He'll be very pleased because it's quite hard to get hold of this pedal, and they're quite expensive from memory, like £200 or £300, and he absolutely loves the sound of this pedal, having tried many different ones. So yeah, he'll be very pleased to get it back. Right, there we go, back together again, apart from a couple of screws I've got to put in, and the pedal is working. I'm hoping it's going to be alright now, and if not, we'll have to have another go. But it did seem that the problem was one of those two voltage regulators. Don't know which one, don't care. And hopefully this one's fixed. So I hope you enjoyed that. Something a bit different from me, and I quite enjoyed working on it because it was quite a challenge, and I think that's quite useful for you to see some of those fault finding techniques, like heating up components with a hairdryer and that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will catch you on the next video. Thanks as always for watching.